let me introduce our panelists, and y'all had very long and impressive bios, but I'm gonna shorten it dramatically, even shorter than what I have here. That's okay. So to my left, I got Baddour. She's a Senior Policy Analyst at Texas Appleseed and the Director of Texas Appleseed's program to promote access to fairly priced financial services for low and moderate income communities. And I think it's safe to say one of the real experts and advocates on this issue. So maybe I'll introduce y'all as you come up. So let you take it away.
Great. Well, thanks, and it's really exciting to be here. Lots of familiar faces in the audience, but also, great to see a lot of people that we haven't seen before. And I was going to start by giving some background. A lot of people, we did some polling on payday lending in the summer, and it was very interesting, the responses. Overwhelmingly, people have a negative response to payday lending. When we ask people to provide words, like what words do you associate with payday lending? Scam, high cost, loan shark, exorbitant pricing, desperate, were some of the words that came to mind. And these are just, a sampling of our voters. But a lot of people, I think, who have never walked into a payday loan store are shocked when they learn about the details and some of the details that Forrest shared. I mean, we see these stores within a 2-mile radius of my house. I think there are 10. There are 2 Title Maxes, there's 2 Easy Cores, an Ace Cash Express, a Cash America. I can go down the list. And so they're all over the place, but unless somebody's walked into one of these stores, people don't always know that the kind of loans that they're offering are at 500, 600% annual interest rates, and the kinds of problems that getting caught up in a loan like that can cause for a family. But I think that a basic question that comes to mind, and I would have asked this question if I didn't already know a lot about this market, is how is that legal? How do we allow people to charge 600% interest? I thought that we had usury laws and caps, and the answer is, well, there are usury laws and there are caps, and I wanted to take us a little back in time, and I promise I won't dwell on it too much or take too long, but payday lending is a relatively new thing, and I guess maybe by saying relatively new, it gives my age away, because I think of the 1990s as not that long ago. But I guess for some people they are. But if you go back, two decades and a little more, that's kind of when payday lending first came onto the scene. It has its birthplace in Tennessee. From a lot of the literature, that's sort of where people tie it back to. And in Texas, when this kind of lending started to proliferate, there was a lot of outcry against it. And I wanted to read to you a quote that struck me as I was looking into the history. Then our then Attorney General, who is now our our national federal senator, John Cornyn, had engaged in some litigation against some of these businesses. And what he said is, this kind of abusive payday lending is illegal in Texas, and those companies who continue this practice will face serious consequences. And so that was the state of the law in the late 1990s, and that litigation was followed up with some movement in the legislature. In 2001, payday lenders were officially placed under what we call Chapter 342 of the Texas Finance Code, which is where the rate caps governing consumer lending and state law lie. And after that session, people thought, okay, we've done what we need to do, we've addressed this issue. Well, what ended up happening is, after the 2001 session, there was a movement toward a series of loopholes to get around the usury laws. First, payday lenders partnered with out-of-state banks in a model called the rent-a-bank model in a lot of the consumer literature, with banks, small banks generally in states that didn't have usury caps, and then importing those rates into Texas. In 2005, the FDIC, through some rules, they passed some rules saying that banks that were engaging this kind of lending collectively could not keep an individual in debt more than 3 months across any bank. So it's effectively a 2-week payday loan limit over a 1-year period. And so as a result, in Texas, they found a new way to do business. And that's sort of what gets us to where we are now. There was a Fifth Circuit Court decision in 2004 called Levick v. Right Money, where they ruled that this part of the Texas law called the Credit Services Organization Act, that just a few players, and actually an elected member of the Texas House of Representatives was one of those players, who had found this this way to do business to get around usury caps. It was challenged in the federal courts, and the federal courts ruled that in the Fifth Circuit that because there's nothing in the law that explicitly states that the fees charged by these businesses are subject to the usury laws, that therefore they're not. And so that kind of became the state of the law from 2005 moving forward. And as Forrest mentioned, in 2004 there were 1,300 of these stores, and now there are 3,400, 3,500. I mean, the number keeps growing. And so the challenge has been, how do we start rolling that back? And so I think that dynamic really defines where we are. It defines the push last session that took place to try to start to put some boundaries around the operations of these businesses, and really defines the push that we're seeing right now to try to pull these lenders under a reasonable regulatory scheme. And I think the question that we have is, you know, I'm concerned we don't want to fall into the trap where they found a loophole, they've been able to exploit the loophole, and now we totally legitimize everything that they're doing within the loophole as the legal solution moving forward. And so that is sort of my framing and one of the key issues that's guided my analysis of this. And so I guess we'll pass it on.
That's great.